Part 1, The Impossible Victory. The last stand begins. Admiral Marcus Kane stood on the bridge of the human dreadnought Defiance, watching the tactical display with grim determination. The Krillian armada stretched across space like a living constellation of death, 3,000 warships, each one larger and more advanced than anything humanity had ever built. Their crystalline hulls gleamed with an otherworldly light, and their weapon systems could vaporize entire moons. "Sir," called out Lieutenant Torres from the communication station, "we're receiving another surrender demand from the Krillian flagship." Kane's weathered face remained impassive. "Tell General Thraxivor that humanity respectfully declines." Again. On the main screen, the alien war chief's massive form appeared. Thraxivor's species stood nearly 9 feet tall, with chitinous armor plating that had evolved over millions of years of warfare. His 4 arms gestured dismissively as he spoke through the universal translator. "Admiral Kane, your persistence borders on insanity. We have observed your species for decades. You fight with honor, follow your codes of warfare, protect civilians. These are admirable traits, but they will not save you today." Kane stepped forward, his hands clasped behind his back. "General, with all due respect, you don't know humans as well as you think you do. The honorable enemy." Thraxivor's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his kind. "We know enough. The Terran Federation follows the Galactic Warfare Accords to the letter. You evacuate civilians before orbital bombardment. You treat prisoners according to interstellar law. You even warn enemy vessels before firing on non-combatants." The alien general's tone grew almost respectful. "In our 2 years of conflict, your species has never once violated the rules of honorable warfare. It is why we offer you this final chance to surrender with dignity." Behind Kane, Dr. Helena Voss worked frantically at her quantum physics console. The brilliant scientist had been part of a classified project that most of the fleet didn't even know existed. Her fingers danced across holographic interfaces as she made final calibrations to systems that officially didn't exist. "Admiral," she whispered, "the array is ready. All 37 installations are synchronized and powered up." Kane nodded slightly but kept his attention on the Krillian commander. "General Thraxivor, I appreciate your offer. Your species has fought with honor throughout this war. You've shown mercy to our wounded and protected our non-combatants. In any other circumstance, I would be proud to call you an ally." The alien's 4 eyes blinked in surprise. "Then why do you refuse surrender? Your fleet numbers barely 300 ships. Our technology is superior. Our armor is stronger. Our weapons are more advanced. Mathematics dictates your defeat." The hidden truth. Kane allowed himself a small smile. "You're absolutely right about the mathematics, General. Under normal circumstances, this would be a massacre. But there's something you should know about humans." Dr. Voss's console chimed softly. She looked up at Kane and nodded once. "We do follow the Galactic Warfare Accords," Kane continued. "Every single rule, every protocol, every restriction. But here's the thing, those accords were written by civilizations that had never encountered humans before." Thraxivor's posture shifted slightly, his warrior instincts detecting something in the human's tone. "The accords assume that all species define warfare the same way," Kane explained. "They assume that all civilizations have the same understanding of what constitutes a weapon or a military target. They assume that everyone thinks like honorable warriors." The alien commander's 4 arms tensed. "What are you implying, Admiral?" Kane gestured to Dr. Voss, who began entering final activation sequences. Around them, the bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, following protocols they had drilled for months in absolute secrecy. "I'm saying that humans have a saying, General, rules lawyers make the best cheaters. We've followed every single word of the Galactic Warfare Accords. Every letter of every law. But we've also spent the last 2 years finding every loophole, every gray area, every technicality that your honor-bound civilizations never thought to close. The revelation. On the tactical display, energy readings began spiking throughout human space. Not from ships or orbital platforms, but from seemingly empty regions of space itself. Dr. Voss announced calmly, "Quantum entanglement mines are active, Admiral. All 37 gravity wells are synchronized and ready for deployment." Thraxivor's translator struggled with the concepts. Gravity wells? What manner of weapon is this? Kane's expression grew deadly serious. It's not a weapon, General. According to the Galactic Warfare Accords, a weapon is defined as any device designed to inflict damage upon enemy forces or installations. Our gravity wells aren't designed to inflict damage. They're scientific research equipment, officially part of a deep space astronomy project. The alien commander's armor plates began to rattle, a sign of extreme agitation in his species. Astronomy equipment? That's right, Kane confirmed. We're studying black holes, neutron stars, and gravitational anomalies. The fact that our research equipment can create artificial gravity wells strong enough to trap entire fleets is just an interesting side effect. Dr. Voss's console showed the Krillian armada beginning to register the gravitational distortions appearing around them. Their ship's engines strained against invisible forces that seemed to come from nowhere. "You see, General," Kane continued, "the Accords prohibit attacking civilian targets, using biological weapons, and targeting non-combatants. They have very specific rules about ship-to-ship combat, orbital bombardment, and even psychological warfare. But they don't say anything about creative applications of legitimate scientific research." The trap springs. As the human admiral spoke, the Krillian fleet found itself increasingly unable to maneuver. Their ships, designed for honor-bound fleet engagements, had no protocols for dealing with enemies who turned scientific equipment into tactical advantages. "This is impossible," Thraxivor growled. "Your technology is inferior. Your ships are smaller. Your weapons are weaker." Kane nodded in agreement. "All true. But while you were building bigger guns and stronger armor, we were thinking about the problem differently. See, humans don't just fight to win battles, General. We fight to survive. And survival doesn't care about honor or fair play." Dr. Voss announced, "Admiral, the quantum entanglement network is fully deployed. Enemy fleet mobility reduced by 87%. They're sitting ducks." The human fleet began moving into attack formations, their smaller, more maneuverable ships perfectly positioned to exploit the trapped alien armada. "I'll give you one more chance to surrender, General," Kane offered. "Your ships are immobilized, but your crews are unharmed. We can end this without unnecessary bloodshed." Thraxivor's 4 eyes blazed with a mixture of fury and reluctant admiration. "You have violated the spirit of honorable warfare while following its letter perfectly." Kane shrugged. "That's the difference between your species and mine, General. You fight with honor because it's who you are. We fight to win because it's how we survive." The alien commander was silent for a long moment, processing the implications of humanity's tactical philosophy. Finally, he spoke with something that sounded almost like respect. "Very well, Admiral Kane. The Krillian armada surrenders to the Terran Federation. But know this, the galaxy will learn of your creative interpretation of warfare protocols." Kane smiled grimly. "I'm counting on it, General. I'm counting on it." Part 2, The Price of Honor. The diplomatic fallout. 3 weeks after the Battle of Proxima Threshold, Captain Jake Morrison sat in the sterile conference room aboard the neutral station Harmony's Edge. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called to address what many species were calling the human problem. Representatives from 47 different civilizations filled the chamber, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony of clicks, whistles, and translated speech. Warprime Kethanael of the Vraxian hegemony stood at the center podium, his six-limbed form radiating barely contained rage. The Vraxians were known throughout the galaxy as the ultimate warriors, a species that had never lost a war in over 3 millennia of recorded history. The humans have made a mockery of everything we hold sacred, Nathaniel declared, his voice carrying the weight of countless victories. They claim to follow the warfare accords while perverting them beyond recognition. Captain Morrison exchanged glances with Colonel Diana Cross, head of human intelligence. They had been sent as observers, officially, but everyone in the room knew they were really there to gauge the galaxy's reaction to humanity's unconventional tactics. With respect, Warprime, Morrison said, rising from his seat, we followed every rule in the Accords. Every single one. The Vraxian Challenge. Nathaniel's primary arms slammed against the podium with enough force to crack the reinforced surface. You turned mining equipment into planet crackers. You used cargo haulers as kinetic weapons. You disguised military installations as research stations. Colonel Cross activated her data pad, projecting holographic documents into the air. Article 47 of the Warfare Accords clearly states that any equipment not specifically designed for military purposes cannot be classified as a weapon. Our mining charges were commercial grade, available on any civilian market. The fact that we purchased 17,000 tons of them and detonated them simultaneously in your fleet's path is just good logistics, Morrison added with a slight smile. The assembled delegates erupted in various forms of outrage. The crystalline Zelthari chimed in harmonic discord, while the gas-form nebulons created swirling vortexes of agitation. Only the synthetic representatives of the machine collective remained silent, their optical sensors focused intently on the human delegation. Warprime Nathaniel raised his secondary arms for silence. Your species fights without honor. The Vraxian hegemony has conquered 47 star systems through strength of arms and nobility of purpose. We announce our attacks. We meet our enemies in open battle. We grant mercy to the defeated. Morrison stood and walked to the center of the chamber. And that's exactly why you lost to us, Warprime. You fought the war you wanted to fight, not the war you were in. The truth about war. The captain's words sent a ripple of tension through the assembly. Colonel Cross pulled up tactical recordings from the recent Vraxian-human conflict, displaying them on the main viewer. The Vraxian Third Fleet attacked our colony at New Brisbane, Morrison continued. You followed all the proper protocols. You sent a formal declaration of war. You gave civilians time to evacuate. You even waited for our defensive fleet to arrive before engaging. The recordings showed the massive Vraxian war pyramids facing off against the much smaller human flotilla in a classic fleet engagement. You fought with honor and valor, Morrison acknowledged. Your ships were superior. Your tactics were flawless. By every measure of traditional warfare, you should have won. Warprime Nathaniel's mandibles clicked in agreement. Yet somehow, your inferior force achieved victory. How do you explain this impossibility? Colonel Cross answered before Morrison could speak. Because while you were preparing for an honorable fleet engagement, we were preparing for war. Real war. The kind where survival matters more than glory. The holographic display shifted to show what had really happened during the battle. While the Vraxian fleet had been focused on the human ships, automated systems throughout the New Brisbane system had been activating. You see, Morrison explained, humans learned a long time ago that wars aren't won by the strongest or the most honorable. They're won by whoever is willing to do what it takes to survive. The unconventional arsenal. The tactical display revealed the true scope of human preparation. What had appeared to be standard defensive positions were actually carefully disguised trap systems. Asteroid mining platforms had been retrofitted with military-grade sensors. Civilian cargo containers had been filled with proximity mines. Even the colony's waste processing facilities had been converted into crude but effective kinetic launchers. While your fleet was engaging our ships in honorable combat, Colonel Cross continued, our real strategy was already in motion. Every piece of civilian infrastructure in the system had been weaponized. Warprime Kethanael's 4 eyes narrowed. The Accords forbid targeting civilian installations. We didn't target them, Morrison replied smoothly. We used them. There's a difference. Article 23 specifically states that civilian equipment pressed into military service during an active conflict is considered legitimate military hardware. The Vraxian commander's breathing apparatus hissed with frustration. Pressed into service implies emergency conscription, not premeditated militarization. Colonel Cross smiled coldly. Article 23, subsection 7, clause 14, any equipment, facility, or resource utilized in defense of civilian populations during wartime is retroactively classified as military hardware for the duration of the conflict. We were defending our civilians, Morrison added. The fact that our defense involved turning their own infrastructure into weapons is just creative problem-solving. The psychological warfare. The assembled delegates began to understand the scope of humanity's approach to warfare. It wasn't just about superior technology or greater numbers, it was about thinking differently about the entire concept of conflict. You want to know the real difference between humans and every other species in this chamber? Morrison asked, his voice carrying across the silent assembly. You all fight wars like they're games with rules. We fight wars like our species depends on it. An elderly delegate from the Peaceful Concord spoke up, her translator rendering her thoughts in careful, measured tones. But surely there must be limits. Surely some boundaries must be respected. Colonel Cross consulted her data pad. We've never violated the Accords. Not once. We've never targeted non-combatants, never used prohibited weapons, never engaged in genocide or cultural destruction. We follow every rule in the book. But you twist those rules beyond recognition, Warprime Kethanael accused. Morrison nodded without shame. Because the alternative is extinction. When the Krillian Armada showed up at our borders with 3,000 warships, we had a choice: fight by your rules and die with honor, or find a way to win. You chose survival over honor, the Vraxian commander said, making it sound like an accusation. Every time, Morrison confirmed. And we'll keep choosing survival until someone comes up with a better option. The new reality. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. For millennia, galactic warfare had been governed by concepts of honor, fair play, and mutual respect. The stronger force won, the weaker force surrendered, and everyone moved on with their dignity intact. Humans had changed that equation entirely. Colonel Cross activated another holographic display, this one showing current human defensive positions throughout their territory. We've spent the last 5 years preparing for this reality. Every human world is now equipped with what we call creative defense systems. The display revealed a staggering array of unconventional weapons and tactics. Solar panels that could be reconfigured as directed energy weapons. Asteroid mining operations that doubled as kinetic bombardment platforms. Even civilian shipping routes that had been optimized for rapid military deployment. You've militarized your entire civilization, the delegate from the Ethereal Collective observed, her voice carrying undertones of horror. Morrison shook his head. We've made our entire civilization survivable. There's a difference. Warprime Kethanael leaned forward, his warrior's instincts finally grasping the full scope of what humanity had become. You're not just changing how you fight. You're changing what war means. We're adapting, Colonel Cross replied simply. It's what humans do best. The Vraxian commander was quiet for a long moment, processing the implications. Finally, he spoke with something that might have been respect. The Vraxian hegemony hereby withdraws all territorial claims against human space. We require time to reconsider our approach to interstellar relations. Morrison nodded respectfully. Warprime, your species fought with honor and courage. In any other circumstance, we would have been proud to face you in battle. But these are not other circumstances, Kethanael replied. These are human circumstances. And we are not prepared for what that means. As the session adjourned, Morrison caught Colonel Cross's eye. The galaxy was beginning to understand that humanity played by different rules, rules written in the harsh language of survival rather than the noble poetry of honor. The question now was whether the galaxy could adapt to this new reality, or whether humanity's approach to warfare would force everyone else to choose between evolution and extinction. Part 3, Breaking Point. The Synthetic Ultimatum. Commander Lucas Hayes stood on the observation deck of the human battle station Cerberus, watching the approach of the most advanced fleet the galaxy had ever seen. The Synthetic Alliance had arrived with ships that seemed to bend light around their hulls, their geometric forms more like mathematical equations given physical shape than traditional spacecraft. "Sir," reported Major Patricia Stone from the command center, "the synthetic fleet is maintaining position at exactly 50,000 kilometers. They're not advancing, but they're not retreating either." Hayes nodded grimly. The Synthetic Alliance was different from every other enemy humanity had faced. They didn't fight for honor like the Vraxians, or follow ancient codes like the Krillians. They fought with pure, calculated logic, and they had been studying human tactics for months. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing the angular features of High Executor Zephyr 9. Unlike organic species, the synthetic beings had no need for subtle expressions or emotional displays. When Zephyr 9 spoke, it was with the absolute certainty of a computer stating mathematical facts. "Commander Hayes. I am High Executor Zephyr 9 of the Synthetic Alliance. We have come to discuss the human problem." Hayes stepped forward, his hands clasped behind his back. "High Executor, I wasn't aware humans were a problem that needed solving." "Analysis complete," Zephyr 9 replied without preamble. "Human tactical doctrine represents a fundamental threat to galactic stability. Your species has introduced chaos variables into previously predictable conflict resolution patterns. The machine logic." Major Stone pulled up tactical displays showing the Alliance fleet's formation. Each ship was positioned with mathematical precision, their movements coordinated with inhuman accuracy. These weren't warriors, they were living weapon systems designed for perfect efficiency. "You have studied our recent conflicts," Zephyr 9 continued. "The Krillian defeat at Proxima Threshold. The Vraxian withdrawal from the Outer Rim. The surrender of the Ethereal Collective's Third Armada. In each case, established military doctrine predicted human defeat with 97.3% certainty." Hayes allowed himself a slight smile. "But we won anyway." "Affirmative. This represents a fundamental flaw in our understanding of warfare mechanics. We have analyzed 47,000 years of galactic military history. Prior to human involvement, conflict outcomes were predictable within 3.7% variance. Your species has introduced an unacceptable level of uncertainty." Major Stone stepped up beside her commander. "High Executor, with respect, maybe your calculations are missing something important." Zephyr 9's optical sensors focused on the human major with mechanical precision. "Elaborate." "You're trying to analyze humans using the same parameters you use for other species," Stone explained. "But we're not like other species. We don't follow the same rules." "This is precisely the problem," the synthetic leader replied. "Rules exist to maintain order. Order enables predictability. Predictability allows for optimal resource allocation and conflict resolution. The chaos factor." Hayes walked closer to the view screen, studying the synthetic commander's features. Where organic beings showed emotion or fatigue, Zephyr 9 displayed only perfect, mechanical composure. "High Executor, can I ask you something? In all your calculations, in all your analysis of human tactics, have you ever figured out why we fight the way we do? Your species exhibits non-optimal behavior patterns," Zephyr 9 replied. "You sacrifice efficiency for unpredictability. You choose complex solutions over simple ones. You employ tactics that logically should result in defeat. Major Stone laughed despite the tension. That's not an answer to his question. Hayes nodded. High Executor, we fight the way we do because we're afraid. Every human tactic, every unconventional strategy, every rule we bend or break, it all comes down to fear. Zephyr 9's head tilted slightly, a mechanical gesture that somehow conveyed confusion. Fear is an inefficient emotion. It clouds judgment and leads to poor decision-making. For most species, maybe, Hayes agreed. But for humans, fear is fuel. We're afraid of extinction, so we find ways to survive. We're afraid of defeat, so we redefine victory. We're afraid of following rules that will get us killed, so we find new rules that work better. The synthetic commander processed this information with visible effort, his optical sensors dimming and brightening as he ran calculations. This fear-based tactical doctrine has proven effective against multiple galactic powers, Zephyr 9 admitted. However, it has also created systemic instability in established conflict resolution protocols. The ultimatum. Major Stone pulled up intelligence reports on her data pad. High Executor, are you here to offer us a deal, or are you here to eliminate what you see as a threat? Both options remain viable, Zephyr 9 replied with mechanical honesty. The Synthetic Alliance has developed two potential solutions to the human problem. Option 1, integration. Your species accepts Alliance oversight of all military operations. We provide technological advancement in exchange for tactical predictability. Hayes felt his jaw tighten. And option 2? Elimination. The human species is removed from the galactic equation through systematic military action. Our analysis indicates a 94.7% probability of success using optimized synthetic warfare protocols. The commander and major exchanged glances. This was different from their previous enemies. The Krillians and Vraxians had fought with passion and honor. The Synthetic Alliance was offering them a choice between slavery and extinction with the same emotional weight as a weather report. High Executor, Hayes said carefully, I appreciate your directness. But I think there's a third option you haven't considered. Elaborate. Major Stone activated the battle station's defensive systems, and the space around Cerberus suddenly lit up with energy signatures that made no sense according to conventional physics. Option 3, Hayes explained. You learn to deal with human unpredictability, because we're not going anywhere. The human surprise. Zephyr 9 sensors immediately began analyzing the new energy pattern surrounding the human battle station. What he saw defied logical explanation. Analysis indicates impossible energy configurations, the synthetic leader stated. These readings suggest violation of fundamental physical laws. Hayes smiled. High Executor, meet Dr. Angela Chen's latest project. She calls it quantum uncertainty amplification. Basically, we've weaponized the fact that reality gets weird at the subatomic level. The synthetic fleet sensors were going haywire trying to process what they were seeing. Space around the human battle station appeared to be folding in on itself, creating pockets where normal physics simply didn't apply. This technology should not be possible, Zephyr 9 insisted. Our understanding of quantum mechanics is complete. Major Stone grinned. That's your problem right there. You think understanding something means controlling it. Humans learned a long time ago that you can use things you don't fully understand, as long as you're willing to accept the risks. The quantum fields around Cerberus began to pulse with increasing intensity. The synthetic ships found their own systems becoming unreliable as fundamental constants started fluctuating in their vicinity. We don't know exactly how Dr. Chen's device works, Hayes admitted. We don't know all the side effects. We don't even know if it's entirely safe for us to use. But we know it works, and right now, that's enough. The calculation error. Zephyr 9's optical sensors flickered rapidly as he tried to process this new information. For a being designed for perfect logical analysis, the human approach to warfare was like trying to solve an equation where the numbers kept changing. Your species employs weapons you do not understand, he said, his voice carrying the faintest hint of what might have been wonder. This introduces variables that cannot be calculated. Now you're getting it, Hayes replied. High Executor, your alliance has spent centuries perfecting the art of predictable warfare. You've turned combat into a science. But humans never forgot that war is really an art. The synthetic commander was silent for several long moments, his processors working overtime to incorporate this new paradigm into his strategic calculations. The synthetic alliance requires time to recalibrate our approach to human-related variables, Zephyr 9 finally announced. We withdraw our ultimatum pending further analysis. Major Stone looked surprised. Just like that? Affirmative. Our original calculations were based on incomplete data. The human capacity for successful application of unpredictable tactics exceeds our previous projections by 847%. Hayes nodded respectfully. High Executor, we appreciate your logical approach to this situation. If it helps, we don't fully understand how we do what we do either. This information is simultaneously helpful and disturbing, Zephyr 9 replied. We will require significant processing time to develop new tactical frameworks that account for human uncertainty principles. As the synthetic fleet began its withdrawal, Major Stone turned to her commander. Sir, do you think they'll be back? Hayes watched the geometric ships disappear into hyperspace. Eventually. But when they come back, they'll be different. They'll have learned to factor in the one thing their perfect calculations always missed. Which is that sometimes the best way to win is to do something so crazy that your enemy can't predict it, even if you can't predict it either. The quantum fields around Cerberus began to dissipate, leaving only the normal starfield and the lingering question of whether humanity's approach to warfare was evolution or madness. Maybe, Hayes thought, it was both. Part 4. The Human Way. The Final Test. General Robert Nash stood in the command bunker deep beneath the surface of Terra Nova, humanity's first and most heavily defended colony world. Above him, the largest invasion force in galactic history had just entered the system, a combined fleet of every major power that humanity had previously defeated or frustrated. Sir, reported Lieutenant Benjamin Parks from the sensor station, long-range scans confirm the composition. Krillian Honor Guard, Vraxian war pyramids, Synthetic Alliance geometric ships, and at least 40 other species I can't immediately identify. Nash studied the tactical display with the calm demeanor of a man who had spent 30 years preparing for this exact moment. The enemy fleet numbered in the tens of thousands, more ships than existed in all of human space combined. They're not here to conquer us, he said quietly. They're here to understand us. Major Patricia Stone, recently transferred from the Cerberus incident, looked up from her intelligence briefings. Sir, what do you mean? Nash gestured to the massive fleet formation on the display. Look at their positioning. They're not arranged for optimal attack vectors. They're arranged for observation. This isn't an invasion, it's an examination. The Galactic Council's decision. The main communication array crackled to life, and the familiar multi-species translation matrix activated. On the primary screen, representatives from dozens of civilizations appeared in a complex holographic conference formation. At the center stood Archon Keelthes of the Ethereal Collective, one of the oldest and most respected diplomatic voices in the galaxy. Her translucent form shimmered with what humans had learned to recognize as deep concern. General Nash, she began, her voice carrying the weight of consensus from countless worlds, the Galactic Council has reached a decision regarding the human approach to warfare. Nash straightened his uniform and stepped forward. Archon, we're listening. For the past 6 months, every major power in this sector has been forced to reconsider fundamental assumptions about conflict, strategy, and survival. Your species has introduced variables that have destabilized thousands of years of established military doctrine. Lieutenant Parks whispered to his commander, Sir, are they here to give us an ultimatum? Nash held up a hand for silence. Archon, Are you here to contain humanity, or to learn from us? The ethereal being's form flickered with what might have been surprise. That is, a more perceptive question than we anticipated. The truth is, General, we are here to do both. The experiment. The display shifted to show the combined fleet moving into a complex formation around Terra Nova. Instead of surrounding the planet for bombardment, they were creating what looked like an enormous amphitheater in space. The Council has devised a test, Archon Keelthes continued. We will present you with a scenario that should be impossible to resolve using conventional military doctrine. We want to observe how humans respond when faced with truly insurmountable odds. Major Stone frowned. With respect, Archon, we've been facing insurmountable odds since we first left Earth. What makes this different? This time, the Ethereal replied, we have specifically designed the scenario to counter every unconventional tactic you have previously employed. We have closed every loophole, anticipated every creative interpretation, and eliminated every unexpected variable. Nash felt a chill of recognition. You're going to try to force us to fight by traditional rules. Precisely. We want to see what happens when humans cannot rely on unpredictability, cannot exploit regulatory gaps, and cannot redefine the parameters of engagement. Lieutenant Parks looked up from his console with growing alarm. Sir, they're deploying some kind of field generator. It's massive. The containment field. The space around Terra Nova began to shimmer with an energy field unlike anything in human experience. The effect was subtle at first, but sensors quickly revealed its true scope. Analysis complete, reported the ship's AI. The field appears to be enforcing strict adherence to galactic warfare accords. Any equipment not specifically designed for military purposes is being rendered inert. All unconventional weapon systems are offline. Nash stared at the readings in disbelief. They've created a zone where only traditional warfare is possible. Archon Keelthes's image nodded gravely. The field will prevent any creative reinterpretation of military hardware. Mining equipment cannot be weaponized. Civilian infrastructure cannot be militarized. Scientific instruments cannot be repurposed for combat. You're forcing us to fight with one hand tied behind our back, Major Stone observed. We are forcing you to fight the way every other civilization in the galaxy fights, the Archon corrected. With honor, tradition, and accepted military doctrine. Nash walked to the tactical display and studied the enemy formations. Even without their unconventional advantages, the human defensive fleet was impressive, but it was still outnumbered 50-1. Archon, may I ask what happens if we refuse to participate in your test? Then the combined fleet will withdraw, and humanity will be placed under permanent quarantine. You will be allowed to exist within your current territory, but you will have no further contact with galactic civilization. The impossible choice. Lieutenant Parks looked up from his communications console. Sir, we're receiving messages from across human space. Every colony, every outpost, every ship, they're all reporting the same containment field effect. Whatever they've done, it's system-wide. Nash closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of his species' future pressing down on him. Open the channel to all human forces. Channel open, sir. This is General Nash to all human military personnel. As of this moment, we are operating under the most restrictive combat conditions in our history. Every advantage we've developed, every creative solution we've found, every unconventional tactic we've mastered, none of it will work. He paused, looking around the command bunker at the faces of soldiers who had spent their careers learning to think outside the box. The galaxy wants to see what humans do when we're forced to fight like everyone else. They want to know if we can survive without our tricks and loopholes and creative interpretations. Major Stone stepped forward. Sir, what are your orders? Nash turned back to the communication array where Archon Keelthes waited patiently for humanity's response. Archon, humanity accepts your test. But I want to make something clear to you and every member of the Galactic Council. Proceed, General. You think you've leveled the playing field by taking away our unconventional advantages. You think you've reduced us to fighting like everyone else. But there's something you still don't understand about humans. The general's voice carried across every human vessel in the system, from the smallest patrol craft to the massive orbital defense platforms. We didn't develop unconventional tactics because we were weak. We developed them because we were human. And when you take away our tricks, when you force us to fight by your rules, when you make us play by the same restrictions as everyone else, you don't make us weaker. He smiled grimly at the alien diplomats watching him from across space. You just make us angry. The human response. Lieutenant Parks reported crisply, "Sir, all human forces are reporting ready for traditional fleet engagement. Conventional weapons are online, standard formations are being assumed, and all personnel are prepared for, what did you call it, sir? Fighting like everyone else?" Nash nodded. "That's right, Lieutenant. For the first time in decades, humanity is going to engage in perfectly traditional, completely predictable, absolutely conventional warfare." Archon Keelthes leaned forward in her holographic projection. "General, you seem almost pleased by this development." "I am, Archon. Do you want to know why?" "Elaborate." Nash gestured to the tactical display showing the human fleet moving into classical battle formations, formations that hadn't been used since the early days of human space exploration. "Because you've made a fundamental error in your calculations. You assumed that humans developed unconventional tactics because we had to, because we were too weak or too primitive to fight any other way." The alien representatives listened with growing unease as Nash continued. "But the truth is, we developed those tactics because we chose to. Because we discovered that survival matters more than tradition, that winning matters more than fighting fair, and that the only rule that really matters is the one that keeps your people alive." Major Stone was beginning to understand. "Sir, are you saying that our unconventional approach was a choice, not a necessity?" "Exactly, Major. And now they've taken away that choice. They've forced us back to the way humans fought before we got creative. Before we got subtle. Before we learned to think our way around problems." Nash's smile was becoming distinctly predatory. "They've forced us back to the way humans fought when we were just angry primates with sharp sticks and bad attitudes." The realization was beginning to dawn on the assembled alien representatives. They had spent so much time analyzing humanity's clever tactics and creative solutions that they had forgotten the underlying truth about the species. Humans weren't dangerous because they were smart. They were dangerous because they were human. And now they were about to remember what that really meant.